You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is September 22nd, 2023 meeting of the Michigan City Board of Public Works and Safety Workshop. You can find more information for this workshop by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Okay, everybody, if you're ready. Let's call this workshop to order now. Subject matter, of course, is street lighting. Ancillary to that is also going to be lights in alleys, whether or not that's a permissive use. Brad, you did some work with NIPSCO.
Yeah, I sent it all probably 45 minutes ago, half an hour, 45 minutes ago. Just talk through it real quick. It's an 8-page package, but the short of it is, in terms of cost, for a single new dusk to dawn streetlight, just under $20 a month for lamp, $2 a month for electricity, and if there's no pole to put it on, there's a pole charge to have a new pole installed. That's $5 a month for the life of the light, so it stays with the cost. So in summary, roughly $27 a month, which comes out to $324 a year. An easy way to remember it would be to say $1 a day for streetlights, for a single streetlight, if a new pole installation was necessary. And again, those numbers and the supporting documentation were sent as an attachment to the email for the meeting invite earlier today. In terms of overall budget, I would let Yvonne touch on that. We do have approximately 1,800 lights across the city.
No, those are only LED lights.
Those are the LED?
Yeah.
1,800
We have
LEDs.
close to 3,000.
Okay.
Did you say
So
that
3,000 total with LED?
Right. Yeah,
that was how many?
close to 3,000. It's like 28 or 2,900.
Annually, how much do we pay?
About 400,000-ish. That's down from 600,000, so we're happy with that. So when the NIPSCO switched out to all the LED lights, it cut the bill by about $175,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to go over the statute first of all? Has everybody got a copy of the statute? Has the city adopted the statute?
Well, the statute is what it is. We don't have to adopt it, but I guess just to give everybody a little bit of context about why we're here is the Board of Works gets requests, quite frequently, a lot here recently about streetlights. So we were asked to put a policy together, and Attorney Ryan Beal that assists me in my office started to put a policy together. When we reviewed the statute, we thought it would be best to sit down and look at this as a group, because the statute contemplates that the Board of Works could pass on that cost to the property owners. So I think what we looked at was, is this something that the board wants to do? We wanted feedback on it. We wanted feedback about what kind of poles we have now. We wanted feedback on who should be requesting these, because more often than not, we get people who don't even live in the neighborhood recently coming in requesting streetlights. So the policy that Ryan has put together is a rough draft. It's just something to just begin discussions on this, and it's no way in its final format right now at all. But I forgot what I was going to say.
let me jump in here.
Yeah, please.
My concern is alleys, okay? Recently, we've had a crush of requests for lights in alleys. In the last 2 meetings, we've had a total of 11 lights requested in alleys. Now, a street light is a street light is a street light. It's not a light that goes in an alley. And all the years that I've been on the Board of Works, it was told to us that there was a policy within the city that said we would not install in alleys. And I think that's a good policy, but this is what we want to discuss here, to see if that is something that we want to do, because I mean, it could be very costly to the city if we start putting in not only street lights, but the addition of the lights in the alley, because obviously there's going to be a lot of areas that are going to want them. The perception is that you have light at night, you're safe. And so basically that's the human condition, and we can't change that, but we can control what we do. Ryan, do you want to talk about your policy?
Sure. So the Indiana Code statute as written, it talks about when a person requests additional lighting in a region that already has a lighting system. It talks about only the property owner being eligible to petition the Board of Works, because that statute talks about then passing on the cost of that light to the person who requested. Therefore, you just don't want anybody coming in to make the request because somebody has to incur the cost. But it sounds like the city has been taking care of this cost here in Michigan City on every request that's ever been made. So I think we, as Amber indicated, we have people coming in requesting street lights, alley lights in areas that they don't even live in, or maybe it's just a tenant that has been there 6 months, they might be gone in 6 months requesting a permanent street light. You know, should we keep allowing that to happen, or should we restrict it to just property owners, person with a substantial interest in the property? I guess it's, where do we want to go? Do we want to keep absorbing this cost? Do we want to consider a situation where the cost of the annual service is passed on to the property owner via like a tax assessment?
And there's another question that I have too, is one property owner wants a light, the rest of the block doesn't. Okay, so how are we going to handle this? Now, the statute did make mention, and this is, I see in the new installation, of getting permission from 60% of the people in the area that are going to be affected by the light. You know, that isn't a bad idea.
I don't think it is either.
No, and
We haven't had remonstrators, but it doesn't mean that somebody isn't affected by it glaring in through a bedroom or something, that they don't want it.
Well, we really need to be giving notice to these people too, and let them know, hey, a request has been made, and, you know.
Well, I think if you look at the statute, it contemplates the person petitioning goes and gets signatures and brings them to us of everybody on the block face. So on the same block they reside and also across the street.
Okay, I'm gonna just sit back and let you guys talk.
So Tony put together, he mapped out all of our existing streets. So maybe we start here and let him present what he put together for us.
So within city limits, like you said, we have about 1,800 NIPSCO poles with lights on them. And those are all the pink dots on the map. All the yellow dots are the decorative street poles that we've installed over the years. All your, you know, your high masts that are along Michigan Boulevard, your 25-footers that are on Franklin, Washington, and Wabash. And then the whole, I think there's 300 or so of the 14.5-footers downtown here. All told, we have about 1,050 decorative lights installed. The NIPSCO database I put together, I actually kind of stole the data from their website, one street pole at a time. And we came out to, within Michigan City and Pop Park, there's 1,967. And like Yvonne said, it's right about 1,800 of those are in Michigan City itself. That data set was compiled about 5 years ago, so I know there's been changes. There's been some poles removed. There's been a lot of poles added. It's just, it's an interesting process going on NIPSCO's website and trying to take the data off of their very basic map and incorporate it into our database. And from what I've got, we have, obviously there's instances where there is a street light at an alley ingress egress point, but there are 0 NIPSCO poles actually in alleys with lights. Another layer that I put on here, you'll see. So these circles that have showed up, that's a 50-foot radius around each of the NIPSCO lights. There's a 100-foot radius. This gives us an idea of where we could put in lights in if there's a, if there's significant gaps somewhere in residential areas that would warrant putting in a new light. But I think for the most part, it's actually pretty consistently spaced. They're all about 150, 180, 200 feet apart. And then I do have a list that I've been working on of places where I need to go on the NIPSCO site. Take the poll number info, take the poll info, put that into our full database here. Which would probably bring the total number up close to 1900 or 1950 if I were to guess.
Yeah, I may be able to help you a little bit with that. I have all of the poll numbers and meter numbers that we're billed for.
That would be great.
Yep, so it's a 56-page document in a 10 font.
Is there a digital copy of that somewhere?
Yeah, oh yeah, I have it in Excel. I'll email it to you.
Okay, cool.
Okay? So you might be able to cross the numbers that you already have with what they have put on our bills.
Yep. Then all the, like I said, all the yellow dots here, take off the NIPSCO lights. All the yellow dots are all of our decorative ones, like I was talking about, which are mainly downtown and along Franklin and along Michigan Boulevard there. And there's a little more than 1,000 of those. I think some, but not many, have been removed along 11th Street. Skylar, correct me if I'm wrong there. So not all of these are still there, but a good chunk of them are. And then same thing there, I've got the 10-foot or the 50-foot radius, the 100-foot radius. And then the final overlay I made was this green one, this green with the black crosshatch there. Anything within that green with the crosshatch is within 100 feet of a pole, be that one of our poles or one of NIPSCO's poles. And when you zoom that out, you can see where the gaps exist, which are few and far between.
I have a question. You circled the 100 feet. Is that a guesstimate or is that the actual glow span of a street light?
That's a rough guesstimate. Because I mean, obviously they're going to have poles of various voltages and wattages and heights, and the glow radius is going to differ from pole to pole. So I just kind of looked at all the averages I could find online and averaged it out, and it's right about 100 feet. But especially in the downtown core, in the gridded part, you can see all these pockets here, 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 and here where all the alleys intersect where there is no light.
Michael, I can tell you that
What's in the alleys?
Yeah.
the white light of the LED versus the sodium, the yellow or the highlight, the white
Yeah, we're
light
looking at it,
is
yeah.
brighter and travels farther. We were doing, it's just that yellow's glow, that sodium doesn't, I don't know how to explain this, the lumen doesn't go very far. the limit on a white light is just brighter. It goes further.
Okay.
I don't exactly know how to explain
Yeah.
that, but it does.
And we've replaced a lot of those.
And now we have a lot of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Your sodium lights
Hey, Tony,
change colors, though.
did you ever receive any information on like lumens or candle power on these roughly?
So it's good to have the LEDs. It gives us more lumens.
Okay. What do our lights run?
Sure.
Yeah. So
400 watt, okay.
Inferior, some of them are 250 and some of them are 120.
So 100 could be more.
it could be more. At downtown, I can tell you that it's.
Okay, this is not the most exciting, I'm sure, discussion, but if we could just get back on track here. As far as the policy and the petition, I think that we gotta start where we always start with definitions. Okay, definition of what a street is, what street lighting is, and a statement that it excludes alleys. Does everybody agree that we're gonna exclude alleys? Do you think? We're not gonna take a vote right now, of course, but.
Right.
Before we do that, I would like to ask PD, what is your thoughts on illuminating alleys from a crime aspect
Okay.
or deterrent?
Well, I mean, obviously, when we're in the light, right, obviously that's a deterrent in itself, right? Nobody wants to be, you know, they love the cover of darkness, right? You can assume that, right? Is it, crime happens in the middle of the day. You know, we're dealing with stuff in the middle of the day. There's still all times of day, night, you know. If a crime can be committed, they're, you know, they have the mindset to do so, they're going to do it. Some of the other objectives to, you know, I think quality of life, lighting, you know, and crime, I don't know, all that stuff has to be weighed, right? Are you know, do you disrupt the, you know, the lighting of the neighborhood, and, you know, somebody wants it, somebody doesn't want it, and now, you know, they're fighting over it, and it's shining in somebody's bedroom window at night, and do we see traditionally a lot of our crime committed in alleyways? I would probably, you know, when it comes to maybe vehicle break-ins, you know, we see that, probably that type of stuff. I don't know that we can pull statistics on crime committed in an alleyway, but, you know, we're gonna see the vehicle break-ins is probably the primary one. You know, we do see some, I would say, in the cover of darkness, right? Yes, that I would say is a factor in crime, but is it the factor? No.
When we get requests at the Board of Works, the residents will state their case to us, and they'll claim that there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Do you get calls on that, or they're waiting for us to call?
With those requests, we could easily pull calls for service, you know, to that, you know, that immediate area, right? Whether, you know, we can do an overview map or something similar, right? So if somebody, you know, 300 block of Allen Street wanted a street light in the alley, you know, we could pull the calls for service to, for someone to come up and say it and to actually be true are different things.
Yes.
You know, so we can easily determine that, you know, by, you know, recent calls for service, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you for that info.
Okay, and let's not forget that dusk to dawn lights can be purchased by homeowners who want them in their area, in their alley, or so forth and so on. So from what the statute reads, it does not indicate that the alleys should be lit. So, you know, that would be a homeowner's obligation, I think. And I think we need to make a statement in our policy in that regard. Amber, you had something also that you were talking about the statistics. Just a minute ago, when the chief was talking. We went on the policy.
That when there's a request that comes through, that maybe with each request, we put in our policy that MCPD runs the statistics in that area about the crime or accidents that have occurred.
Yeah, that's easily done.
Okay.
That's good.
Virginia, did you say that you feel alleys should be the homeowner's responsibility?
Absolutely. It's not, we're not required by the state statute.
Whether we're required or not, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, but the probability of homeowners accepting that is not going to happen.
We've always done it before. This is in the last year, and I've been on this board for 9 years. In the last year, we started allowing the city, or having the city install lights, okay, in alleys. We never did it before. It was never a city policy. Okay, when people came into us in the past, it was usually a light mid-block. And yeah, you see it, and it was always that. Never, and I take that back. We had people come in and ask for lights in alleyways, and they were told simply that it was not our policy to do that. And I think that's a good policy, because it can be extremely expensive.
I know
If you've got 3,000, we've got 3,000 total lights now, okay, you could easily double that. So your cost is over 400,000 now. You have $1 million for streetlights because you're putting them in alleys.
I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but public safety is the number one issue in Michigan City.
We don't know that that's going to increase safety. There's no way of knowing that. It makes people feel safer, but that doesn't mean that it necessarily makes them safer.
Well, we spend a lot of money. We spend a lot of the ARPA money. We feel we spend it effectively, but this is pretty important. We got $3 million ARPA money left.
Mayor, we can't spend ARPA money on streetlights. We won't be able to sustain it. ARPA money is a one-time thing. This is a monthly bill that we get for the streetlights.
Okay.
12 months out of the year.
So the installation.
Year after year after year.
So ARPA could not pay the initial installation cost.
You know, the installation is $60 a year.
I think you also need to consider like the neighbor aspect of it too. That's kind of so when we did the downtown lighting, we actually had to go in and replace those lights and lower them down because they were too high and they're shining in. We had upper story residential people actually living there who had lived there a long time, and we had a lot of issues with that. So I think it's also like, I think the piece about getting people to sign off is important, because just one person on the block, they want their backyard lit, but the rest of the people, then they're sleeping in their back bedroom, and I don't know, I think you need to consider that. Because it was something we dealt with quite a bit downtown when we were looking at decorative lighting. And the heights of that, it's all about the heights and the limits and how they shine. Then you have to go on some of the decorative lights in Elston. So we put those in, and where the abandoned, some of the houses didn't have people in them. Now they have people in them. We're having to go back and shield those lights from the back side of them. Andy, I think Marcus builds a special, they don't make a shield, he has to custom make that shield which obviously it's just growing pains that we're having now with people living, a lot more people living downtown, but they're having to put so I think it's important to consider that.
Sure.
I mean, those are more decorative, like we install them as a public works project rather than now, so it's just a little different.
There
are some things to consider.
There's a lot to consider in regards to how it's going to affect the neighbors.
Yeah, and I would just add too, having the homeowners, install their own lighting, that also allows them to take a vested interest in the safety of their community and their neighborhood. We want to be there and we want to, help when we can, but we need that help and need that assistance from, the community as well, right? Take that vested interest to help as well. And they can't just throw that, all on the city, to do that, right? It has to be a great partnership, and I think that's part of it as well.
That's a great observation. Now, we also mentioned that the statute contemplates a sharing of costs. It sets a minimum of 35% of the cost of an installation. This is an add-on installation for the city to absorb, and 65% of the homeowners. And as we said earlier, I don't think there's ever been an assessment for streetlights in the past. I don't know whether we're going to go down that road or not, but it needs to be something that we talk about. Any thoughts, anyone? Amber, do you have any thoughts?
No, I mean, it is what it is. It's very, as you can see, it's difficult trying to put a policy together with some of these lingering questions. I definitely agree with what Skylar said. I think we need to add to our petition that the property owners on the block face, that you get at least 60% buy-in. And it should be the petitioner's obligation of getting their signatures on it. But as to a responsibility of cost sharing, that the statute contemplates it. I bring it to you guys. Yeah,
It would be
the
very
city could.
difficult.
Yeah, the city could still consider absorbing it. It's just.
So one of the things that's come up in recent, we have a new subdivision coming in. We are going to have I think we're going to have more subdivisions coming in. How do we absorb that cost? Because the one on pause is, I mean, it's not like it's an exorbitant amount, like millions of dollars, but one of the questions they were asking me and Brad was, remember they kept asking about like, how do we establish a lighting district is what they were talking about. I didn't know, I don't know, because we haven't had a big subdivision coming like this. But other cities do it through the districting of saying, okay, this subdivision is gonna be assessed for their lights. That way it eases the absorption on the city controller and the city and the taxpayers. So it's something that could be established. I'm not saying we need to do that with our downtown, but it's something to think about in the future when we have the subdivisions, because you're putting in a mile and a half of road, I think, in the new subdivision. So, I mean, it's not a lot of lights, but at least it would be offset to that subdivision, if you will, or that HOA. And then if they want more, or they want a decorative light that's, say, higher wattage or something like that, then it's a way to absorb that cost. I think our code establishes that we can do that. I think the council has the say over establishing that district in the subdivision code. But obviously, that's something to think about too. This is our first 100-lot subdivision coming in. If we get say we get 4 more of those, that's quite a bit of, I mean, you're talking only 35 acres of land, a mile and a half of road. It's still a lot of infrastructure.
Certainly, and we're building for the future too, so.
Correct,
you
your
know,
policy is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Your policy is going to dictate the future and how we handle new things coming in. The old is, like, you're not going to have alleyways in this subdivision. They don't have alleyways. They're abutting. But you might have a subdivision come in with alleyways, and that's not to say they wouldn't do that. It just this one just doesn't lay out that way.
So that's something that should be in our policy, and I think we can spell that out pretty easily.
It helps me and Brad and I think the planning commission and probably council too, in saying we want 3 lights per block, anything more than that, But it also says in our code that in the statute that we're responsible for the intersections, because it has to be.
Correct, we're always responsible by
Like
state law.
You're in charge of that, but anything more is, X.
That's right, that's right. I think it covers it quite well in the statute for the new installations.
I know that's kind of off subject because we're really talking about.
No, it's part of it.
But I think it should be part of the policy.
I think it's a critical part of the policy. We need to spell it out. We need to distinguish between existing light areas and those that are new, just like he said.
I think it's a much different process when you're talking about a new subdivision coming in and saying, hey, we need a whole new lighting system in here, but the costs are split.
That's right.
So as opposed to someone just coming in and saying, hey, I need an extra light on my streets.
Right. And as far as petitioning goes, we need to make that clear to petitioners. This is the policy for this situation, this is the policy for that, so. Anything else, any other thoughts?
Well, I still feel that we go ahead.
There's some dead spaces in the city where there's like one home. Take, for instance, if you go to Springland, Carwick, to the Stern, the Bend, to where the train bridge, the obsolete train bridge, that's completely dark. There's one home under there. He's on the east side or right by the bridge area there. But there's no one to ask for, and there's no one to charge. The park's the DNR park, beautiful park, but there's no light. So how would someone address that in this?
I think that, in my mind, we're contemplating individuals, homeowners, coming to the Board of Works and requesting a light. We're not going out and making an inventory for the purposes of adding new lights. That's my position.
It's a safety hazard. When I drove that last night, you couldn't see. You can't see that bridge effectively with your lights. That's all I'm bringing that point up.
Okay.
That's a dead space because there's nobody there.
Okay.
You travel every once in a while.
There's not to say that we couldn't go out and look at it and see if it warrants a light and do that on our own without a petition, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can do
That
that.
would be on city property.
That's right, yeah, we could do that.
I have a question for the chiefs. Nobody knows more of the details about shots fired than you guys. You respond to every call. How would you say the majority of the areas are in less poorly lit areas, shots fired? When your officer arrives, is it at the middle of an intersection where we got lighting, or is it not very well lit areas?
I would say that in the last, couple of years it's varied, right? I mean, we're seeing the stuff in broad daylight now, so I don't know that, the blatancy and the disregard for safety and anything in general is, to the wayside. It doesn't matter if it's lit or if it's daylight or if it's the dark of nightness, dark of night, it doesn't matter, in some of these individuals' minds. Again, I mean, is lighting an alleyway just going to deter somebody? No, not necessarily.
Okay.
If they've got the senseless, or the disregard for human life to shoot, then they don't care if they, are lit or not. I mean, case of point, just individuals at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So this week.
Okay, thanks.
I'm lost. So to be clear, this specific policy is addressing requests for more street lighting on city property, not private property.
That's right, exactly. Correct, yeah.
So what's used to determine where the lights go now? Say like when they built and put lights out, you said mid block or both ends of the block, mid block, something like that. So if there's a criteria established that will determine a yay or nay if a request was made, I think that what Socrates was asking for, that's still an ask that can come before the Board of Works, not necessarily for this policy, but we have dead space in the city, can we see about getting a light? Then what would happen if that request made? There would be a determination made by planning or police or whoever, right? Those factors would determine whether that light could happen. But this policy specifically is my Logan Street block has 2 lights, one on each end, it's dark in the middle, can we get a light in the middle?
That's
correct.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the past, we put very few additional lights mid-block. There were times when our former engineer would go out and take a look at it and say, I'm sorry, but we feel that we have enough light out there at each end of the block, and if you want a light in this area, you need to talk to NIPSCO and get a dust-to-dome light. So, sometimes that's appropriate, sometimes it's not, and we have to have a mechanism to determine whether or not that's the road we're going to down. Whether we're going to, just say a blanket, no, we're never going to put a light mid-block, or we're going to say, well, we're going to put a mid-block if this happens, if we've got 60% of the neighbors who want one, and so forth and so on. That's the way we're trying to approach it, more in a scientific manner rather than just willy-nilly doing things, okay? Mike, did you have something you want to say?
No, I agree with that totally. I think we've been doing good at making our decisions based on data and others' opinion, and not just us sitting on the board and deciding what needs light and what doesn't. So I think this meeting, it comes off of more questions. We're getting more requests. We had more questions. We just want to make a policy that works for everybody, including the Board of Works.
Right, and we're looking for consistency. We don't want to have one guy come in and ask for a light and be told one thing and somebody else told something differently. We want to treat everybody equally. The same ground rules for everyone. Anybody else have any concerns?
Yeah, I'd like to say something else. I apologize for being late, but I came in during Tony's presentation for the entire city. Public safety being what it is, criticality-wise, I'm backing off on city paying for all of it. I think if a neighborhood feels they want street lights, they have to have a certain percentage of the neighbors agree to it. Just like a neighborhood watch, you don't have every person have the right to call the police department when they see something they don't like. The police department can't chase down that many calls. But if a certain percentage of the neighborhood agrees that they need lights, additional light, then that additional light can be installed, and the residents in that neighborhood will bear a portion of the cost.
Yeah, we want to have a policy and where we can tick off the boxes. This situation happens, we act this way. If we feel, if the initial determination is to be, there is a need for a light there, okay? And then do the neighbors agree with this? And then we proceed accordingly. And that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to be logical here. It's not rocket science, it's just logic. Yes, sir.
All right. So now, what we're talking about, this is excluding alleyways, correct?
Yes, we never did before.
Okay. And I tell you where confusion is coming in with some of what we're talking about in terms of lights and what's happening here, the policy for additional street lights. I mean, I have 5 streets in mind, I need one in the middle of the block right now. But where the confusion is coming in and what was mentioned by myself at a council meeting in terms of people now requesting lights in alleyways. Mm-hmm. I mean, the perception is out there that somehow lighting deters crime.
Yes.
That's the public perceptions that we hear as council people on the ground talking to people.
Certainly.
And so what I brought up in regards to some of the questions that happened in my neighborhood groups and things like that, and this is where I talked about these solar lights that we appropriated $15,000 for the lights. Angie Nelson Dykes actually brought the light to a council meeting to show what they looked like. So that's creating some of the confusion with the public is the fact that they have been requesting some things in the alleyways, and I was so she said it's excluding that, but I'm trying to figure out with those lights, because we wanted to see those in the alleyways and that, and hopefully we can work on something. Maybe it's going to be outside of what you guys are trying to do here with your policy, but that whole thing with these solar lights was supposed to be for alleyways, and then you run it the Arbor Board with us when we passed that. So.
Well, we passed it conceptually, Brian.
No, we passed it conceptually.
When Angie brought it to the meeting, she brought a sample, no specifications on it, no limits. We don't want to buy something and then it doesn't work. Now we have to replace it. We want to buy it once and have it work. So we need to know make, model, specifications, and performance.
We voted on that at the ARPA meeting.
Yes. What's that?
$15,000.
Councilman, who was supposed to be the lead on it?
I know.
Because this is the first I'm hearing about it.
And that's what we right.
Who is the lead department? Who is the lead that was going to take this over?
And that's when I started to ask about it again, because I don't know if there was a lead.
Because like I said, when I talked to you first, I heard of it.
This is what we appropriated money and it stopped. This is what we found.
What you found, though. What you found.
Well, no, that was in the PowerPoint that Angie presented to the ARPA committee.
Okay, efficiency.
Could you speak so we could all hear you?
Specifications, they approved it, and that was it. That's it.
So,
we didn't get a bill to buy any, we didn't pay for any, it hasn't been installed, it just was appropriated.
Appropriated, never.
Until there's a project put together and.
Never gone anywhere.
Weren't they going to be? Well, it was listed, if you look, it was actually listed under service. under the project safe neighborhood flat system rating system. It was all in that category because I have the resolution right there.
Right.
Yeah, that's just a classification
Yeah,
of the
but I'm just saying that
ARPA
was
funds.
looped in there.
Yeah, and it was just presented at that same meeting.
Right.
So, yeah, and the way those are grouped, that's just classification that the federal government put out of the ARPA funds.
Okay, so we don't want to be working at cross purposes with the council. I mean, we gotta, all work together on this thing.
Yeah, like I said, what you have going on here was totally different than, like I said, what we were trying to do, but that started down the line, like Tamiko said, it was appropriated, and now it's sort of stopped. There was no lead in terms of ordering and arranging to get those up in alleyways. That was
or establishing an actual program and process. That none of that happened.
Because we're really the ones that are in charge of
So that's something that needs to be done on our part.
That's
where we decide to work.
And just send it to any department to go make quotes, what kind of lighting. We have no idea if there's
But
any
you know,
funding.
if we go to dollars for our money, it always
Hey,
ended up
Brad,
getting where
That's
it
why
did you ever see these?
So what's taking
No.
Well, it's
This is the first time I've seen them.
Presented in 2021, Mayor.
Yeah, it was presented at the end of 21.
21 is when that was appropriated, but that was presented at the ARPA meeting. And that's, I think, what you guys used to.
I'm not fighting it.
Oh, no,
I'm not fighting it. I'm just saying this is the first time I've seen this, and I see right at the top a 25-watt light. Imagine a 25-watt light bulb in your house. That's a refrigerator light bulb. You know, that's why I said I wasn't taking issue with it, right? I was saying we don't want to buy something. We spend the money to have it installed, and it doesn't work.
So we have to do our due diligence of putting together the.
Absolutely. We got to install something that works.
That number in mind, did you guys have a specific product? Because my guess is it needs to be referred to a specific department. I don't know if it's something that engineering would want to pick up or planning would want to pick up about what would work, what would the recommendation be, what would quotes look like, how much do we even have? Because in my mind, I don't think $15,000 is probably going to be enough.
Yeah, because this said something about $10,028 for the lights and approximately $5,000 for additional materials and labor-related costs.
How many lights does it say?
I don't think it said.
And where are these things going to be put?
Two lights for 10 grand?
Yeah.
No.
Well, how many then? So I would say
That's what I
no to
said,
two.
I don't know.
Yeah,
We
that
don't
would be
know, and that's the whole thing with this whole project. We don't know.
And I don't have the notes I took from that meeting, talking about how many.
Shoving the table off from under you.
Councilman, where were you going to put them? Where were you going to put them?
We got what you guys are doing is street lights, and it's totally separate.
But we'd like to know.
But it's in conjunction.
100
Yeah.
lights.
I mean, let's work together
I
on
thought I
this.
saw it on here, but I wanted to make sure I didn't want to say. Yeah. This was a,
So now, I
This
am
was a
asking,
pilot program that
as we, like I said, like Tamiko said, money was appropriated and we never moved, we never organized, so now completely outside of what's going on with the street lights. Where do I need to go in order to get this done?
Do we not want to bring that in with this policy with streetlights? Do we not want to share this and try to, have a uniform policy?
And just my opinion, I think we want to keep this separate because this is a one-time money that we have for this. So I don't know if we would want to commingle it with.
But if I look into the future,
It makes no sense.
dust off my crystal ball and look into the future, this is, if we do the policy with no alleys and then we supplement the alleys with something that the council comes up with or the ARPA, and then people, the general public says, oh great, I get a solar light. So I put that up 2 years in the future. Now my solar light stops working, where are they gonna go? Board of Works. And then what are the Board of Works gonna do? We're gonna go to the council, whoever it is, and my experience with the council, and not defaming anybody that's here, but my experience with the council is they don't work well with the Board of Works. And I think we do need to keep this separate, and if we're gonna do this for the public, we have to put a positive outlook onto it and have people assigned as project leads and put a project together in conjunction with the Board of Works so that we know what's coming at us. And it would have been nice to know at the last few meetings when we were being requested at alleys that there is something in the works.
Where would you plan to hang them?
I have no idea.
Holiday and determine is it effective, then it would determine whether the Board of Works will need to continue to support it after the fact. So, I mean, I think that was the general idea of it, which is why I think it mentioned only purchasing like 100 lights to create, to see if there's a need for it, get it out there and then see. I mean, and in that way, that would address what you're saying. If when you establish it, or whatever you decide to do is used to compile that data, then you'll know whether the Board of Works would need to continue it if the solar lights that go out or, you know, or whatever maintenance might be required, because we won't know until it gets started.
Where will you hang these solar lights? Do we have poles? I mean, or do we have to get NIPSCO poles?
No.
These look like they're designed to like hang on the sides of buildings or something.
Oh, okay.
You can put it on an established pole that's out there already.
Yes.
I've seen pictures of them that are hanging from somebody's garage.
Oh, okay.
And when we initially did this, our discussion didn't even mention anything about putting it in with Board of Works. That wasn't even a thought of ours. So if you know, keep it outside of the policy of the Board of Works, we're fine with that.
Solar, do you realize the lumens you get out of a solar light? A solar light isn't gonna light anything.
Who do I start with?
We attach the lights to a structure like a garage, and we gotta ask permission to do that at the property.
Somebody can request it.
And then the next property owner would say, well, wait a minute, I want it.
Okay, I
Mine
got
too.
I got all the negative. I have all the negative. I'm just asking where would I start to develop?
We need to, somebody needs to define the pilot program.
Because all of us at the council, obviously, we voted for it and approved it, so we would like to move forward and see what we can do to get this established. So, and like I said, keep it out of the Board of Works policy. We can, you know.
But there has to be a long-term act.
Well, then when it goes south.
Right, so if the mayor or any council feel like we need more of those lights, we can probably ask for a $10,000.
Deemed successful, then.
Hey, don't talk to between yourselves, talk to the group. Hey, so when it goes south, Councilman, when there's problems with these lights, what are you gonna do? People are gonna come to us. We're gonna say, we don't know anything about it, not our job.
I just said keep it out of that policy.
I can send that to you as well. But that's what they voted on, that's what they presented.
I can email that.
This is the silliest thing I've ever heard.
I got a question performance-wise. Brad, don't take offense to this question because I feel you're an incredible engineer. Do you feel comfortable specifying a light performance-wise to cover an area?
No.
It should be electrical engineer.
Yes.
Okay. So now we got somebody that we got to bring in, another person we got to bring in the outside, that increases the cost. Either we bring them in or we have the contractor bring them in. But somebody's got to stand by the specification. This light will do the job. It'll do what you need done.
Right. And also, they should go on private property. You shouldn't put them on AT&T poles, NIPSCO poles. It's got to go on your garage or your above your back door or whatever. It's got to be private property. That's important.
Okay, and then if somebody gets injured on one of these, they fall on somebody's head, then it's a city liability. Yeah.
That's a good question.
That's a crazy question. Come on. You know, it can't be any crazier than the idea of putting a solar light and expecting it to do all that.
Intended.
So Brian Dabney put
That it would be all on
private
property, not on city property, so not on the NIPSCO poles or.
If we install it, okay?
Oh, no, I don't think we're gonna install it either.
We're gonna just hand these things out and let other people install them, is that right?
They still have to determine.
They have to determine that.
Like
I said, it was presented to the ARPA committee.
Volunteers.
This guy is the strangest thing out
Keep
here.
it out of that policy. Now for the 36, keep it out of your policy. So if something like that happens, so Brian Dabney puts a light on the side of whatever he has and it falls and hits somebody in the head, it's Brian Dabney's fault.
No, we'll say that it was a faulty fixture. It fell because there was some problem with its design.
We didn't have a certified contractor install it. That's why it fell. So if you guys want to run with the ball, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that.
Contractor, I need to put a light on the side of my house. Okay. I got it.
Please don't even go.
Okay, anything else?
I gotta be in South Bend in an hour.
Ryan, is there any questions that you want?
Well, are we going to limit the ability to petition the board for additional lights to the property owner? So no tenants?
That's right.
Okay. And Mr. Minnick, this NIPSCO cost for additional lights, so we're basically leasing any lights that are added. There's going to be a yearly cost to that, right?
It's billed monthly
Okay.
to the controller.
But you're paying for the light each month, you're paying for the service. So I guess we need to decide if we're city
He's
pays for
absorbing
this
the
for
cost.
each one, or does it go to the person asking?
Whose garage it's hanging open?
On the side that it's. If we decide it's need to be paid.
Amber, have you got any thoughts on this? Okay.
All I can do is present the law. That's all I do.
And I agree.
Because I think it's a very difficult decision since we've never asked before.
It's not great.
Oh, the city's,
It's not a big cost, but
city's growing and the world
No,
is changing.
as far as my input on this, Orion, I define the city block in section 2, the
guys,
street lighting, and
Kevin's having a hard time.
That's correct.
who can apply, neighbors have to approve, and assessment of costs. I think those are the issues that we need to address. Okay?
Yes.
And of course, meeting with the board, and the board's gonna have to have a mechanism for sending someone out to see if it's appropriate to put the light there. I think that's basically it. Anything else?
You do have some tenants in the city that are 20-year tenants. You do have longevity. I don't know if there's a longevity. You would look at a longevity clause to a tenant. That's the only thing I think excluding a tenant, because there's 20-year, 30-year tenants in the city. So I'm just bringing that up.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So if we're not charging and there's nothing tied to the address for a NIPSCO charge on their bill, then would we limit it to a homeowner, or should we open it up? And if we open it up, then there's the thought of, we have 20-year residents that rent at the same house for 20 years, but we also have 3-month residents that come in and go. So to your point, I mean, if you're not the homeowner, should you have some sort of vested interest in the neighborhood? Whether it be time or ownership or...
I think it has to be owned.
The statute contemplates ownership as the threshold.
Yeah. For multiple reasons. One is if there is an assessment, we can't be assessing the property owner without their input and approval, okay? And we can't assess a tenant who has no property interest, so, it has to be a property owner.
So if it's a tenant, we make the property owner sign off on it.
Well, but that's exactly really saying you have to have the property owner. Yeah, so I mean, that makes no difference. The tenant goes to the property owner or whatever, it's still the same thing, so.
You can still get into a disagreement because the landlord's not gonna, that's not an issue, whereas the tenant says, yeah, it is an issue.
Well, you also have 60% of the neighbors having to have input, and bet your bottom dollar there's going to be a lot of them that are going to say, hey, I don't want that light there. So you're always going to have some give and take on who wants what done.
Okay.
So.
Good point. But the tenant could be part of the 60%.
Hmm?
So could the tenant be part of the 60%?
well, the tenant can be part of the 60%, but as far as giving permission or asking for the, we're gonna have to have the property owner factored in.
Yeah.
No, the statute contemplates property owners as
That's
part
right.
of the 60% at all times.
that's right.
So it's not a tenant on the other side, it's the actual owners.
The owner plus, I don't say the owner plus 60%, but it could be argued that it's that. But it's a total of 60% of the block needs to approve, agree. And in some neighborhoods, that you wouldn't have a majority of 60% agreeing, and some you will. So, you know, we just have to deal with it. We can't be putting up lights that's shining into somebody's bedroom. You know, I mean, there's legitimate reasons for not. And even, you're talking about lighting alleyways. My God, that's even worse because a lot of these older homes, that's where the bedrooms are, you know, so. Anything else? Have I bored you enough? I would get up and sing and dance, but I can't do either. Okay, all right, well, thanks for coming.